pride of place in cat suffrage ramble. After leaving the altar and descending towards the brook, visitors next encountered plaques recognizing the international dimensions of the suffrage movement. First was Dr. Aletta Jacobs, who led the women of Holland to political liberty. Across the brook and back into the cow pasture was a parallel inscription to Millicent Garrett Fawcett, who led British women to political liberty, followed by Frau Minna Kauer, who led the way for political freedom for German women. Those three leaders, with whom Cat had often collaborated during her years of international work, reminded those meandering in the woods that the suffrage struggle truly was a worldwide phenomenon. Then it was back to suffragists who had toiled on American soil, starting with the abolitionist Abby Kelly, who inspired women to break their silence. She was joined by two other towering figures of suffrage history, Lucy Stone, who blazed a trail, and Lucretia Mott, who said truth for authority, not authority for truth. As part of this tableau, Cat chose for Angelina and Sarah Grimke twin trees, handsome and tall, which were joined at the base but separated into individual trunks higher up. The plaque for the Grimke sisters read, "Who refused taxation without representation," a somewhat odd choice, given that they were best known for their linkage of anti-slavery activism and women's rights. At least they were part of the pantheon. One final spot was chosen with elaborate care. Behind the altar, a small group of pine trees formed a semicircle. Here, on her own, Cat placed temperance leader Frances Willard, the woman of widest vision. Befitting someone whose motto was, "Do everything," the plaque saluted the breadth of Willard's vision, which linked temperance to a range of issues, including suffrage. It also gave another nod to the international dimensions of women's activism by recognizing Willard's leadership of the World Women's Christian Temperance Union. Cat's carefully curated mini-tour of suffrage history was not quite finished. A final plaque commissioned by the recently formed League of Women Voters in New York City and added in 1922 celebrated none other than Cat herself. The inscription was in Latin, Dux Femina Facti, which roughly translates as, "A woman who was leader of the exploit." No documentation exists to show where this plaque was placed, presumably not on the altar, but maybe across the brook with Abby Kelly or Lucy Stone, or maybe Cat tucked it away off the beaten path, hesitant to take her place alongside the other suffrage pioneers. Truth be told, she deserved to be on the altar alongside Anthony, Stanton, and Shaw. Today her plaque and 8 others reside in the archives of the Arthur and Elizabeth Schlesinger Library on the History of Women in America at Radcliffe. There are many ways to tell the history of woman suffrage, but I want to follow Carrie Chapman Catt's lead and tell it through people, places, and objects. Too often the necessity to cover the relentless chronological sweep from Seneca Falls in 1848 to the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920 flattens the story, rendering it lifeless. Biography makes it come alive. To bring the story of the American women's suffrage movement to life, I have organized the narrative as a prosopography featuring 19 discrete but overlapping biographical stories. This approach allows me to recapture the breadth and spirit of the movement through individual lives while providing an overview of the larger suffrage story. As Carrie Chapman Catt's tree plaques suggest, things tell stories too. Along with photographs and illustrations, objects and artifacts bring another dimension to the history of the suffrage crusade. To make that connection explicit, in each biographical chapter, an object or image sets up the suffrage story that follows. Sojourner Truth's carte de visite, the commemorative pin given to Hazel Hunkins in 1919 by the National Woman's Party, Charlotte Perkins'